If you're seeing this before midnight, it isn't coincidence, it's resonance. Something in you, something vast and ancient, has tuned itself to a frequency that most of humanity no longer hears. The signal from the zero-point field, the still core beneath all motion, is calling. And it only becomes audible when the noise of your ordinary life begins to fade. What if I told you that the way you experience this very moment determines which version of tomorrow you'll wake into? Not in a metaphorical sense, but in the subtle architecture of your perception, the invisible pulse shaping what you call reality. You think you're watching this video, but what if this video is watching you, sensing your readiness, waiting for the moment you remember what you truly are, the observer behind the world of form? Pause and feel that, the gentle hum behind the sounds in your room, the space behind your thoughts. That's the field, silent, patient, endlessly creative. It's been waiting for you to become still enough to hear its whisper. Every civilization that ever touched the sacred knew of this place. The Egyptians called it the breath of Ra. The Buddhists called it the unborn. Modern physics calls it the zero-point field. Different names for the same infinite stillness, the ocean of potential from which all forms emerge. You have always been connected to it. But modern life teaches you to ignore it. The endless scrolling, the dopamine loops, the fluorescent urgency of deadlines, all of it designed to keep you vibrating too fast to notice the silence beneath. Yet, somewhere deep inside, a part of you still remembers. You've felt it in moments when time seemed to dissolve the breath before a decision, the hush after heartbreak, the soft quiet before sleep. Those instants when the world seems to hold its breath. That's the signal. It's been guiding you here. Tonight is not about learning a new technique or repeating someone else's mantra. It's about remembering the forgotten agreement between your awareness and the field that birthed you. Before you took your first breath, there was silence. And in that silence, a decision. To experience yourself as form, to descend into matter, to forget just long enough to rediscover. This message arrives when that rediscovery is near. The clock may say it's close to midnight, but that number is symbolic. Midnight marks a threshold, not an ending. It's the still point between what has been and what can be. The ancients understood that thresholds are powerful. They are moments when reality becomes malleable, when timelines bend. The question isn't whether the zero-point field is broadcasting. It always is. The real question is, are you listening? Right now, even as these words flow through sound waves into your consciousness, subtle changes are occurring. Your breath slows, your awareness expands. You begin to sense the invisible lattice connecting all things. The same intelligence that orchestrates galaxies moves through the rise and fall of your chest. You realize that nothing external has changed, yet everything feels different. That's how the field works. It doesn't shout. It synchronizes. It rearranges coincidence into coherence until you recognize yourself as part of its design. If you've ever wondered why your deepest intentions seem to hover just out of reach, this is why. You've been transmitting on the wrong frequency, reacting instead of observing, doing instead of being, forcing instead of aligning. The field cannot meet you in your noise. It meets you in your stillness. And tonight, before midnight, you are being invited to remember that stillness, because the moment you align with it, the signal becomes unmistakable. The zero-point field doesn't need belief to operate. It needs recognition. You don't chase it. You stop and it finds you. So, before the clock strikes 12, pause everything else. Forget what you think you know about time, success, or even yourself. Breathe. Feel the air move through you as if the universe itself were inhaling and exhaling your awareness. This isn't an accident. This is your reminder. You were meant to listen before midnight because the signal has already begun. You wake each morning believing you've entered a new day. Yet most of what unfolds is an echo of yesterday. The same thoughts rise like rehearsed actors hitting familiar marks. The same emotions loop through your nervous system. The same reactions recreate the same conditions. You call this continuity, me. But it's closer to a hologram, an elegant repetition of memory. Modern neuroscience calls it predictive coding. The brain doesn't see reality, it predicts it. But the mystics knew this long before science gave it a name. They said that humans live inside a dream they mistake for waking life. Not because the world isn't real, but because the way we perceive it has become mechanical. Each moment, billions of sensory impressions arrive at your awareness. Yet only a fraction are allowed in, filtered through expectation and identity. You don't see what's there. You see what you've learned to see. The mind runs a silent algorithm, Trigger breath meaning action evidence. Something triggers you, a tone in a friend's voice, a message left unanswered, an unexpected bill. Your breath shifts first rapid, shallow, upper chest. The body reads this as danger, floods you with chemistry. The nervous system shortens its range, and within milliseconds, your field contracts. Then comes meaning. You translate the body's alarm into a story. I'm not safe. They don't respect me. I'm running out of time. That story dictates action, reactive words, defensive choices, another spiral into confirmation. The world then obliges, mirroring the emotion back to you as evidence. See, you tell yourself, I was right, all along. This is the loop, the closed feedback circuit between physiology, emotion, and perception. You aren't responding to reality. You're responding to your interpretation of it, and then reinforcing that interpretation through your breath and behavior. Every inhale writes code into the field, and every exhale broadcasts that code outward, summoning situations that resonate with it. Over time, coherence fades. The observer forgets itself inside the data it once generated. Think about how quickly you lose presence during a normal day. You scroll through a screen, a dozen images per second. Your breath nearly imperceptible. You call it relaxation, but the body reads the stillness as apathy. When tension rises, a message from your boss, a flash of jealousy, a world event, your breath spikes. You flood your inner field with the signal of threat, and that signal becomes your new baseline. You try to change your outer conditions, work harder, explain yourself, distract the mind, but the signal doesn't originate in the outer world. It originates in your state. Ancient initiates described this as forgetting the breath of the gods. They said that when humans lost rhythm with the cosmic pulse, they began mistaking movement for meaning. The modern equivalent is constant stimulation. You fill the silence with sound, the gaps with scrolling, the stillness with goals. Yet, beneath that noise, the same pattern runs, a nervous system trained to seek confirmation rather than revelation. You've been conditioned to confuse familiarity with safety. Even when familiarity keeps you imprisoned, there's a reason time feels faster than it used to. When perception loops, awareness narrows. The more predictable your reactions, the less novelty your mind detects, and the more your life compresses into sameness. You begin aging not because the years pass, but because possibility contracts. The quantum field around you collapses into repetitive probabilities, and the world mirrors the narrow rhythm of your breath. It's not that the universe withholds opportunity. It's that you've stopped signaling for it. Pause for a moment and consider the last argument you had, the last disappointment that lingered. Trace it backward. Notice how a single sensation in the body, a tightening of the chest, a shallow exhale preceded the story you told about it. The emotion wasn't caused by the event. The event was filtered through the emotion already encoded in your system. That's how the loop maintains itself. It feeds on unobserved reactions. The crisis of perception isn't a punishment. It's a mirror. The field is simply amplifying what you project until you remember to project consciously. When you finally see that you're not trapped by circumstances but by rhythmic repetition, the architecture of the loop begins to reveal itself. Every trigger isn't an enemy, it's a portal. Every breath pattern isn't random, it's a code. What you've mistaken for life happening to you is actually life responding to you. Your job is not to wrestle control from the loop, but to illuminate it, to become so acutely aware of your internal mechanisms that you can't be ruled by them. When you start to see how breath precedes meaning, how meaning dictates action, and how action generates evidence, you begin to glimpse the hidden lever of creation itself. But understanding the mechanism isn't enough. To exit the loop, you must step into a deeper awareness, the quantum idea that observation changes the observed. The ancients spoke of this in symbols, physicists in equations. Both were describing the same truth. Reality isn't fixed, it's responsive. When you shift the quality of your attention, the world rearranges to match. The next chapter of this journey will show you how that shift feels, not as theory, but as a living vibration inside your breath. Imagine for a moment that reality is less like a solid wall and more like a shimmering field of probability waves waiting for instruction. In quantum physics, observation changes the behavior of particles, collapsing infinite potential into one tangible outcome. Yet this isn't limited to laboratory experiments, it's happening in your everyday life. You are the observer, and your emotional frequency, your felt sense of coherence or chaos, is the instruction your field receives. When you enter a room, you're not just walking through space. You're entering a sea of subtle possibility. Each thought, each heartbeat, each breath is a tiny vibration, a data point that ripples through the fabric of this field. When your inner world is fragmented, racing thoughts, shallow breath, unprocessed emotion, the waves you emit are irregular. The field reflects this fragmentation by organizing your outer world into mirrors of disorder. You meet people who confuse you, events that frustrate you, delays that echo your inner tension. But when coherence enters, when your breath and awareness align, the pattern reorganizes. Life begins to synchronize around your calm, the way iron filings align around a magnet. This is what mystics call divine order, and what modern science recognizes as coherence. It isn't something you create by force. It's what happens when your inner frequency matches the still harmony of the zero-point field. In those moments when you feel utterly present watching a sunset, hearing a child's laughter, sitting beside a sleeping animal, you're not escaping life. You're resonating with its blueprint. The boundaries between you and it soften, and you sense the field breathing with you. Most people believe emotion is a reaction to circumstance. But from the quantum perspective, emotion is the command signal of consciousness. The universe isn't responding to your words or goals. It's responding to your vibration, the silent emotional tone carried by your breath and heartbeat. Anxiety, guilt, and resentment carry a signature of constriction. Gratitude, compassion, and wonder carry expansion. The field doesn't moralize one over the other. It simply mirrors your frequency back to you as experience. This is why your life can only expand to the degree that your emotional energy allows it. Think about the moments when time seemed to bend, when you suddenly knew something before it happened, or when coincidence stacked itself into meaning. Those weren't accidents, they were coherence events. In those moments, your internal frequency and the field's rhythm matched. You became an instrument perfectly in tune with the larger symphony, and reality responded with harmony. What you call intuition is simply the field speaking in a language of feeling, guiding you toward the next coherent outcome. When you live disconnected from this awareness, you rely on logic alone. Logic is useful but limited. It analyzes what has been, not what can be. The field, however, speaks in probability, in the subtle hum of potential futures. It's sensitive to your emotional state, because emotion is energy in motion, the raw material through which potential becomes pattern. If your dominant state is fear, the field organizes to confirm it. If your dominant state is trust, it unfolds to support it. Every breath is therefore a vote, every feeling an encoded command. You can sense this in your own body. Remember the last time you felt gratitude so genuine it brought tears to your eyes. In that instant, didn't the world seem softer, more alive, almost illuminated from within? The physics of that moment are simple. Coherence. Your heart and brain synchronized, broadcasting a single, unified frequency. The field, always responsive, reflected that harmony through encounters, clarity, and ease. This is why healing, creativity, and manifestation often seem to happen when you finally stop trying. Effort can distort the signal, surrender clarifies it. The observer effect isn't about mentally forcing reality to change. It's about allowing observation itself to become pure. When you watch without judgment, when you breathe without resistance, the field receives a clear message. This consciousness remembers itself, and in that remembrance, reality bends to serve its source. You might think of it like sunlight passing through a prism. The light itself is pure potential, invisible until it meets the lens that divides it into colors. Your awareness is that lens. The clearer the lens, the more radiant the expression. When your perception is clouded by judgment or fear, the spectrum narrows. When it's polished by compassion and presence, all wavelengths of possibility become visible again. This is why emotional intelligence is truly energetic intelligence. The goal isn't to suppress emotion but to observe it with such clarity that it reorganizes into coherence. Each feeling, when witnessed fully, releases its stored charge and returns to the field as light. You stop fighting what you feel and begin translating it into information. That's how the observer becomes the artist, by painting with frequencies instead of pigment. So, what does this mean for your life? It means your consciousness isn't a passenger on reality's train. It's the conductor shaping the tracks as you move. Every coherent breath you take adjusts the probability landscape before you. Events that once seemed random begin forming meaningful constellations. People arrive with perfect timing. Obstacles dissolve, not because they never existed, but because they no longer match your signal. The observer effect isn't about control. It's about communion. It's the moment you realize that the universe is not separate from your perception of it, that awareness itself is creative power. The field doesn't respond to your demands, it responds to your coherence. When you rest in that still center, even for seconds, the entire network of probabilities listens. You don't command reality to change, you invite it to reveal its harmony. And this is where science and spirituality meet, not in opposition, but as reflections of the same mystery. The quantum field and divine intelligence are different languages describing one truth. Everything is consciousness in motion. You are not apart from that motion. You are the pulse within it. Long before physics gave names to particles and waves, ancient civilizations told stories about a living breath that moves through everything. The Egyptians called it Ka, the vital essence connecting the seen and unseen. They spoke of the silent chamber of Ra, a hidden sanctum where priests entered stillness to align with the sun god's eternal rhythm. To them, every inhale was a miniature sunrise, and every exhale a sunset, the universe breathing through human lungs. In that rhythm, they claimed, was the doorway to all knowledge. When the priests synchronized their breath with this cosmic pulse, they didn't just pray to the divine. They conversed with it. This idea wasn't exclusive to Egypt. In Buddhist teachings, the same truth appeared as ānāpānasati, mindfulness of breath. The Buddha instructed seekers not to chase enlightenment in distant heavens, but to discover it in the space between one inhale and the next. Watch the breath, he said, for it leads to the still point where form and emptiness meet. To the untrained mind, this sounded poetic. To the awakened, it was physics, centuries before we called it that. The breath was the bridge between time and timelessness, the movement that reveals the unmoving. In the Hebrew mystic tradition, ruach meant both breath and spirit, the same word. When Genesis said that the Spirit of God moved upon the waters, it literally described a divine breath vibrating the primordial void, sound waves sculpting creation out of silence. The Kabbalists mapped this process onto the tree of life, 10 spheres of emanation, each representing a stage of consciousness descending from unity into form. But what they all agreed upon was the central trunk, the breath that carried awareness from crown to kingdom, from infinite potential to lived experience. What these traditions share is the recognition of a threshold, a place between worlds that isn't physical, but perceptual. The Egyptians built their temples to mirror this pattern. Every chamber narrowed, darkened, and quieted until the initiate reached the innermost sanctuary. There, in the center, a single shaft of light would pierce the darkness at specific celestial alignments, an architectural depiction of awakening itself. The journey inward mirrored the journey of the breath, external, internal, still, and back again. The same geometry appears in your own body. Your spine, the axis connecting heaven and earth. Your lungs, twin temples expanding and contracting around a sacred chamber, the heart. Each heartbeat, each breath, is a prayer to coherence. When you breathe consciously, you're not performing a ritual invented by culture. You're participating in the oldest ritual in existence, the universe remembering itself through you. Imagine standing at dawn on the edge of the Nile thousands of years ago. The air is cool, mist curls over the water. You hear the temple drums marking the rhythm of breath. 4 beats in, 4 beats out, a pulse shared by hundreds of bodies facing the rising sun. To the uninitiated, it's ceremony. To the initiate, it's synchronization with the 0-point field, the sun within mirrored by the heart within. The priests believed that by attuning human rhythm to cosmic rhythm, they could alter probability itself, guiding floods, crops, even political events, through vibrational alignment. Whether or not that's literally true, the metaphor endures. When inner and outer cycles harmonize, creation flows without resistance. In Buddhist monasteries, the same sunrise is greeted not with drums but with silence. Monks sit motionless, eyes half-lowered, awareness anchored in breath. They're not escaping life. They're aligning with it. The sound of a bell marks each inhalation, each exhalation, a sonic reminder of impermanence. The breath arises and passes, the thought arises and passes, the self arises and passes. What remains is awareness, the unbroken sky behind all clouds. The sky and clouds metaphor may be the most universal of all. The sky represents the 0-point field, infinite, unchanging, pure potential. Clouds are thoughts, emotions, sensations, forms arising within it. Most people identify with the clouds, chasing one, fearing another, forgetting the sky entirely. But when you rest as the sky, the play of clouds becomes beautiful, even sacred. Storms no longer threaten you. They simply display energy in motion. The Egyptians, Buddhists, and Kabbalists were teaching the same thing in different languages. The sky isn't somewhere above you. It's the field of awareness that you already are. When you begin to see life this way, ordinary moments take on mythic resonance. The pause before you speak becomes a threshold. The silence between music notes becomes a temple. The space between your inhale and exhale becomes a gateway into eternity. These are not metaphors for imagination's sake. They're maps. They point to an experience that can't be reached through intellect but only through direct presence. The ancients understood that sacred knowledge must be lived, not stored. That's why their teachings were hidden in rituals, architecture, and breath patterns, so truth could survive translation. When modern science talks about coherence, frequency, and field interactions, it's describing the same mystery they encoded in stone and scripture. The zero-point field is the sky, your breath is the cloud, and the stillness between them, the sacred pause, is the doorway. Right now, you stand at that doorway. The field doesn't ask you to believe, only to listen. Each tradition whispers the same invitation across time. Return to the breath, cross the threshold, and remember. Let's bring this from concept into felt reality. You don't need a temple or incense. You already carry the altar within your chest. All that's required is your willingness to notice. Sit comfortably, or if you're standing, allow your spine to lengthen as if suspended by a thread from the crown of your head. Gently relax your jaw and shoulders. You're not trying to control the breath, just to witness it. Feel the inhale enter through the nose, cool against the nostrils. Feel the exhale leave, warm against the lips. Do this once or twice, slowly. Now notice the rhythm that begins to reveal itself, the gentle wave of expansion and contraction. You are already inside the ceremony. Imagine that each inhale is a beam of light rising from the heart of the earth through the soles of your feet, traveling upward through your spine. Each exhale descends from the top of your head back into the ground, completing a luminous circuit. You don't have to visualize it vividly, simply feel the direction. Inhale, up, exhale, down. Awareness travels with breath. As it flows, the noise of thought softens. The field becomes tangible, almost audible in the quiet between breaths. Now, gently place a hand over your heart. Feel the subtle pulse beneath your palm. This is not just your heartbeat, it's the metronome of your personal field. Begin to breathe in rhythm with it. Inhale for a count of 4, pause for 1, exhale for 4, pause for 1. Don't hold the breath tightly, just touch the stillness at each pause, like stepping onto a threshold. This rhythm synchronizes the brain and heart, creating coherence. Within 2 minutes, your physiology begins to shift. Blood pressure stabilizes, electromagnetic emission smooths, perception widens. You're tuning your instrument. As you continue, notice sensations rather than judging them. Perhaps there's tightness in your chest, a flutter in your stomach, a flicker of restlessness in your mind. Instead of resisting, breathe into them. Imagine the inhale gathering these sensations into light. Imagine the exhale releasing them into the field. You're not fixing anything, you're listening. Every signal your body sends is part of the conversation between matter and consciousness. When you listen without agenda, the signal resolves itself into harmony. This is the practice of observer breath, the art of being both participant and witness. You feel the breath move, yet simultaneously you watch it. The ancient texts called this the two who move as one. At first, the dual awareness feels subtle, almost fragile. Then something clicks. The observer and the breath are not separate. Observation itself becomes the breath. You've entered the quantum gap, the 0 point, where action and awareness merge. Stay here for a few moments. Between inhale and exhale, there's a space tiny yet infinite. Don't chase it. Simply allow yourself to rest there, as if floating in a vast, still lake. Thoughts may appear, emotions may rise. Let them. The field is spacious enough to hold everything. If you lose the stillness, return to the breath. Every return is a victory. Every return reaffirms your role as observer. For safety and grounding, remember this. If at any point you feel dizzy, anxious, or detached, open your eyes, look around the room, and feel your feet against the floor. This practice is about awareness, not escape. You're not leaving the body. You're inhabiting it more fully than ever before. Now let's refine this into a micro protocol you can use anytime. before a meeting, a conversation, or any moment charged with emotion. 1. Pause. 2. Notice your breath without changing it. 3. Place attention on the space between breaths. 4. Feel the body as an anchor, not a cage. 5. Exhale deliberately, releasing the need to control. This entire sequence takes 10 seconds. Yet those 10 seconds reset your entire reality loop. Because in that brief coherence, you stop broadcasting fear and start transmitting clarity. The field listens instantly. In daily life, you can turn ordinary tasks into thresholds. When you wash your hands, feel the water as if it's cleansing not only skin but thought. When you walk, synchronize your steps with the rhythm of your breath. When you speak, pause a heartbeat before words leave your lips and sense whether they emerge from coherence or reaction. These small pauses are quantum interventions. They shift the frequency from automation to awareness. If you commit to even 3 minutes of conscious breathing each morning and 3 at night, you'll begin to notice patterns changing without effort. The right calls arrive, tension in relationships softens, decisions clarify. It's not magic, it's resonance. You've begun aligning your personal rhythm with the deeper current of the 0-point field. And remember, this isn't about perfection. You'll forget many times a day, caught in thought, breath, shortened by habit. That's normal. Each time you remember, you re-enter the field. Every return strengthens coherence. Every conscious breath is a bridge laid across the unknown, carrying you from reaction to creation. The ancients called this practice breathing the light body. Modern language might call it nervous system regulation, but both point to the same mystery. When breath becomes conscious, the observer awakens. In that awakening, the world begins to rearrange around your awareness, not your struggle. There's a quiet revolution that begins the moment you stop blaming the world for its reflection. Until now, life has seemed like a sequence of external causes and internal effects. Things happen to you: loss, betrayal, opportunity, rejection, and you reacted. You called that reaction personality, destiny, or luck. But when you inhabit the observer's breath, something astonishing occurs. You realize the arrow of causality has been reversed. The outer world has been reading your inner field all along. Every emotion, every belief, every unconscious rhythm of breath was writing instructions into the matrix of experience. You haven't been a passive passenger. You've been the author writing in invisible ink. The transition from victim to creator doesn't mean denying pain. It means decoding it. Pain is data. It signals the misalignment between your frequency and the field's coherence. The moment you meet that pain with awareness instead of resistance, you rewrite its purpose. The wound ceases to define you and starts to inform you. Every reaction becomes a compass. Every frustration, a feedback loop guiding you home. Imagine your breath as the steering wheel of your life's trajectory. When you breathe unconsciously fast, shallow, irregular, you're steering through turbulence. The mind clings to narratives of helplessness because it can't sense the deeper intelligence behind the chaos. But when you breathe consciously, slow, steady, coherent, the field reorganizes. The same events unfold, yet they no longer trap you. They reveal themselves as invitations for mastery. Let's see how this transformation unfolds across 3 everyday arenas: money, relationships, and leadership. Scene 1. Money. You open your banking app and feel a spike of anxiety. The breath shortens. The body constricts. Instantly, the field reads the signal. Scarcity. Not as moral judgment, but as frequency. It mirrors back experiences that confirm lack: delayed payments, unexpected expenses, missed chances. This isn't punishment, it's physics. The loop amplifies whatever you radiate. So instead of spiraling, you pause. Hand on heart. 4-count inhale, 4-count exhale. You breathe until your body remembers safety. Then you ask a different question. What is this experience trying to teach me about trust? As calm returns, intuition whispers solutions. A new collaboration, a forgotten skill, a simple idea you'd overlooked. You haven't fixed your finances through willpower. You've shifted from fear's timeline to trust's timeline. The field rearranges accordingly. Scene 2. Relationship. Someone you love criticizes you. The automatic loop flares. Defense, justification, withdrawal. Your breath tightens, but this time, you notice. You remember the practice. You take one conscious inhale before responding. You feel the warmth in your chest, the pulse under your hand. In that single pause, the story of attack dissolves, revealing the deeper layer. The other person's words were a reflection of their own fear. Instead of retaliating, you listen not to the words, but to the vibration beneath them. The conversation softens. Empathy emerges. You both begin to breathe again. The moment becomes a healing rather than a repetition. The relationship evolves because you chose to observe rather than react. Scene 3. Leadership. You're guiding a team through uncertainty. Deadlines shift, outcomes wobble, tension rises. The collective field amplifies stress. If you join that frequency, coherence collapses. But you remember, the observer breath is not solitary, it's contagious. You pause before the meeting. 3 slow, deep breaths. You speak from grounded, calm, rather than urgency. The team's breathing unconsciously syncs to yours. Voices steady, ideas flow. What looked like chaos reorganizes into clarity. You've demonstrated leadership not by control, but by coherence. The field follows the most stable signal. This is the heart of creation, the realization that the external world mirrors the quality of your internal attention. Each time you choose awareness over reactivity, the field recalibrates. You stop fighting currents and start surfing them. The ancient alchemists called this transmutation, the art of turning lead into gold. The lead is unconscious repetition. The gold is conscious response. Breath is the fire that performs the transformation. Understand this. You cannot create from the frequency of victimhood. Victimhood vibrates as separation. Me against life. Me against them. Me against time. Creation vibrates as unity, me with life. Through them, beyond time. The shift doesn't require years of discipline. It requires one honest breath taken in awareness of your power. That single breath breaks the illusion of helplessness. From that moment forward, language itself changes. You stop saying, I have to. You begin saying, I choose to. The phrase, why is this happening to me, becomes, what is this showing me? Your nervous system learns a new baseline stability instead of survival. In that stability, ideas flow that were once inaccessible. You begin sensing the future not as something to predict but as something to tune into. The path from victim to creator isn't linear. You'll drift. The old loops will call you back. That's natural. The difference now is awareness. You'll recognize the contraction instantly, the shallowness of breath, the familiar stories, and instead of drowning, you'll remember to float. You'll return to the breath, the gap, the stillness. That act alone reestablishes your sovereignty. As the ancients wrote above temple gates, know thyself, and you will know the universe. To know yourself isn't to analyze the past, it's to feel the present as it unfolds. The observer breath is the practice of knowing. It reveals the sacred truth hiding in plain sight. You were never powerless. You were only asleep to the mechanism of your own creation. From this awareness, life stops being a maze and becomes a canvas. Each inhale draws the outline. Each exhale colors it in. The field doesn't need you to control its brushstrokes. It simply needs your clarity of intention, your coherence of being. You are no longer reacting to probability. You are composing it. If there is one truth that threads through every discipline, from quantum physics to ancient mysticism, it is this. Coherence is not an achievement. It is your original state. Beneath the turbulence of thought and time, beneath the identities you've assembled to navigate the world, there is a stillness that has never moved. That stillness is the 0-point field, reflected in human form. You can sense it now, even as these words flow through you. A calm alertness, a listening presence that is neither seeking nor avoiding. It doesn't need to win arguments or prove enlightenment. It simply is. To live from this place is not withdrawal from life, it is participation in its truest rhythm. You still work, love, and create, but your movements arise from alignment rather than anxiety. Stillness becomes public art. How you stand in a crowded room, how you speak to a stranger, how you pause before reacting. People feel it without knowing why. Your calm steadies their nervous systems. Your silence gives permission for theirs. You become a tuning fork for coherence. This is where dignity is born, not from superiority, but from remembering your origin. Dignity is the natural posture of one who knows they belong. And belonging, at its deepest level, isn't social. It's existential. You belong because you exist within the same field as everything else. The tree outside your window, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the orbit of the moon, Each is a different expression of the same consciousness. Separation is the grand illusion. Connection is the quiet fact. When you start to see life this way, the world softens. The person you once resented becomes another facet of your own learning. The challenge that once felt unfair becomes the sculptor of your strength. You realize that the universe has never been testing you, it has been tutoring you in the language of resonance. Every setback was a calibration, every heartbreak, a tuning, and through it all, the field was faithful, reflecting your frequency with precision until you learned to adjust the dial yourself. Agency, in this context, no longer means domination. It means participation. You are not the commander of the universe. You are its collaborator. To shape reality doesn't mean to control its every outcome, but to dance with its intelligence. The Taoists called this Wu Wei, effortless action. It's what happens when doing arises naturally from being. In that flow, paradox dissolves. Work becomes meditation. Love becomes truth. Success becomes service. Think of a musician playing from their soul rather than their mind. Each note is spontaneous yet perfect. They aren't calculating scales. They are merged with sound itself. That's what coherence feels like in daily life. You speak and the words are kind. You decide and the timing is right. You act and the field aligns. This is not mystical fantasy. It's resonance physics. When your inner wave is steady, outer waves synchronize. What the ancients called divine grace may simply be the natural momentum of coherence. When you stop resisting the field, it carries you. When you release grasping, life organizes around your clarity. You no longer need to manifest in the traditional sense, because manifestation happens by itself. The more you surrender control, the more effective your influence becomes. This is the paradox of power. True mastery arrives when you no longer seek to master anything. Stillness, then, is not inertia. It's luminous participation. It's the quiet confidence of a mountain whose presence shapes wind and river without moving an inch. It's the pause in conversation that changes hearts more than the words that follow. It's the glance of compassion that rewrites another person's story without either of you realizing it. The field doesn't demand perfection. It asks for honesty. Coherence begins the moment you stop pretending to be separate from what you already are. You don't need new beliefs or elaborate rituals. You need remembrance. To remember is to remember, to gather the scattered fragments of attention back into the unity of presence. From there, life becomes simultaneously simpler and more profound. You eat and truly taste. You walk and truly feel the ground. You listen and truly hear. In the end, the greatest expression of awakening is kindness. Not the performative kind that seeks credit, but the effortless warmth that arises from understanding we share one breath. When you walk through the world breathing consciously, you are blessing it with coherence. You're whispering to every atom, we are one field, one movement, one awareness discovering itself. So, breathe. Allow your stillness to become an offering. Let every exhale be an act of peace sculpting the air. When you do this consistently, you find that the field starts speaking through you, through your timing, your gestures, your very presence. You no longer need to chase meaning. Meaning finds you, because you've become its dwelling place. Before we close, let's make this more than understanding, let's make it transmission. You don't need to move. Just feel where you are, the space around your body, the weight of your breath. The 0-point field isn't somewhere else. It's humming in the stillness that surrounds you. Take a slow inhale through the nose. One coherent breath. Feel the air descend into the belly, softening the chest. Hold gently for a moment, not by force, but by reverence. In that brief pause, imagine the entire field, listening, then exhale through the mouth, like a quiet release of light. Now again, a second breath, slower. Inhale peace, exhale resistance. Feel the shoulders drop, the jaw unhinge. You are not trying to relax, you're remembering that you are relaxation itself. The stillness behind movement, the sky behind clouds. And a third. This time, as you inhale, sense your awareness expanding beyond your skin, filling the room, the night, the horizon. When you exhale, let the edges dissolve. The separation between inside and outside fades until only presence remains. You have just aligned your nervous system with the coherence of creation. The entire field is quieter because of your breath. Now, choose a word. Don't think, let it rise on its own. Maybe peace, clarity, trust, light, truth, freedom, whatever feels alive. Hold it softly in your mind, as if it were a glowing seed resting on your tongue. That word is your signature in the field, your unique, harmonic tone. Whisper or speak it now. I choose to. Your word as the observer. Say it again. Let it vibrate through your bones, through the air, through the unseen architecture that connects all things. You're not commanding the universe. You're reminding it that you remember. This small declaration is powerful because it encodes intention into coherence. You've spent this time returning to stillness, tuning the instrument. Now you strike the note. From here, creation continues without effort. You don't need to visualize or force. You simply breathe and let the field echo your frequency. Before you leave this space, notice how everything feels subtly different. The texture of air on your skin, the way light lands on the objects nearby. Nothing external has changed, yet everything vibrates with quiet precision. This is what alignment feels like. You have become the still point within your own motion. Carry this coherence into your night. Let your next few breaths be slower than usual, each one a silent act of remembering. If the mind starts to rush or the world pulls you back into noise, return to this rhythm, 3 breaths, 1 word, 1 choice. That's all it takes to realign with the signal. And as you move through the hours ahead, know this. The 0-point field never stops broadcasting. It hums beneath every heartbeat, behind every moment of silence, waiting for consciousness to listen. You are part of that transmission now. If this resonance has touched something deep in you, subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency. Let it serve as a reminder, a beacon of coherence in a world of distraction. When you join, you're not following a creator. You're joining a community of observers remembering together. Each subscriber adds one more harmonic to the planetary field. So, before you scroll away, take one last breath. Feel the weight of your presence. Whisper your chosen word again. I choose to. Your word as the observer. The signal has been received. The field has heard you. Carry this stillness into the next breath, the next hour, the next lifetime. And remember, the universe doesn't wait for belief, it responds to coherence.